What a day it has been. Oh, Mr. Q is talking to me. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see everyone. If you're on Facebook and YouTube, let me know you're here. Hi, it's good to see everyone again. Hello, Mrs. McCabe. It's good to see you too. Oh, it's been quite a day. Give people a few minutes to join us here. Wow. I hope everyone had a good week. Many thanks to those of you who joined Mr. Madison and me last Friday. We had a lovely time walking through the city together, and I hope you all enjoyed it, those of you who joined us. Oh, I see Mr. Talmadge has joined us from Setauket, and we have Manassas, Virginia, and Rhode Island, and of course the Bronx. Thank you all for joining me. And some other people I see here from the West Coast and other places. It's good to have everyone. Thank you, Mr. Cipolla. I hope that's the way you say your name, for the compliment. And Mr. Davis. And for those of you who joined Mr. Madison and me, I think the tour was quite a success. It was the first time I ever tried to do a tour with people in person and people watching on live stream. And I think it went very well. And I'm very grateful to those of you who joined on the live stream and put up with a few technical difficulties we had. They weren't very bad. And we worked it out, and I'm planning to do more of those for you in the future. And for those of you who missed it, that tour will be on sale next week. And if you watch social media or the newsletter I put out on Mondays, information for buying that recorded tour will be there. It'll be very reasonably priced, and you can watch Mr. Madison and Mrs. Q walk through New York City. And we had a really good time. There were quite a few people out on the street that day, so thank you. Also, those of you who are watching in the future on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel if you don't already. I'm trying to reach 1,000 followers. I know that doesn't seem like much in the world of YouTube, but it is a lot for me as I've just started, and I'm almost there, so please help me get to my 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And even those of you who are watching on Facebook, if you do use YouTube, head over and please subscribe to the channel, Patriot Tours NYC, just like it is on Facebook. Excuse me, I have a little bit of an itch here. Also, if you would consider supporting my Mrs. Q project, I think I have the information for you right here. That would also be really fantastic. If you'd like to make a small donation, that would be great. And these are the different ways you can do it at paypal.me, Patriot Tours on Venmo, Patriot Tours NYC. You can also come out over to Patreon, Mrs. Q NYC, and be a regular monthly patron. And that, of course, helps support all of the different tools I need to make my little Mrs. Q show happen every week. So that is greatly appreciated. And to those of you who are regular supporters, thank you so much for your support. It means a lot to me. And as you know, I work very hard every week to get a great live with Mrs. Q out to you on Friday nights. I also, am thinking about what other kinds of things you might be interested, since I am a business lady in both the 18th century and the 21st century, and what sorts of things you might be most likely to buy from me. So let me know in the comments in the chat, would you be most interested in narrated tours, already pre-recorded with different pictures and prints added in that you could buy and watch? Do you like the idea of participating in a live tour through a live stream? Let me know if you like that. And also let me know if you would like me to write some things. Are you interested in things like Amazon's short reads, which are those, little books that Amazon puts out? I can put out some of those as well for you. So let me know in the comments or the chat which types of those things you would be more likely or more interested to buy from me. And I'll get to work at putting some of those things out. And of course, as always, you can always email me with your ideas. I'm always here in Hanover Square, New York City, where you can reach me many ways. Some of you know how to call me. You can email me, contact me on social media, whatever you'd like. Now, the next big Mrs. Q event coming up that you can participate in is Evacuation Day, November 20th. That's a Saturday afternoon. The tour will commence at 1 p.m. And as of now, it is an in-person tour only, produced by Francis Tavern Museum. I am going to be speaking to Francis Tavern Museum next week about the possibility of offering this as a live stream as well. Oh, I see Mr. Davis, tomorrow is his birthday. Well, happy birthday to you. I hope this starts out maybe a 24 hours of your birthday. That will be wonderful. So back Evacuation Day, you can find tickets for that at francistavernmuseum.org. If you don't already know, my co-host on that tour will be Mr. Alexander Hamilton. He will be my co-host for the entire walking tour. It will be an immersive tour. Other people will be joining us on the way. And one of the people who will be joining us on the tour, who I speak of every week, and this will be your opportunity to meet her in person, my very own sister, Mrs. Van Rensselaer, Mrs. Van R, will be joining us on the tour. So come out on Saturday, November 20th, and meet Mrs. Van R and hear what she has to say about the deplorable condition of New York City at the end of the war and her attitude about such things. It will be wonderful. And Mrs. Van R and I, of course, will be dressed very nicely for all of you. Also on that tour, some of the people we just might run into may be one or two members of the famous Culper spy ring who are in New York for reasons we won't tell you on Evacuation Day. A friend of Mrs. Q's who is a loyalist who may have a very difficult past with Mr. Hamilton. There may be some sparks flying there. We also will run into, I think, a soldier who is back in New York after 7 years looking for his brother who he has not seen since the battle for New York in 1776. So he will be there. And of course, the general will be there, General Washington. I hope you'll come out and join us. As I said, as of now, only in-person tickets are available, but I am hoping we're going to be able to live stream that. And if not live stream it, perhaps just do a video version of it that you can then, buy to watch later. So we are working on some options to expand the opportunity to attend what is going to be a really incredibly fun tour celebrating the end of British occupation of New York. So let me see. I mentioned coming on that it has been a particularly difficult day. Oh, I'm just going to take a glance at some of these comments here to see if there's I see some of you have enjoyed Mr. Talmadge instructing me in the use of the Brown Bess musket. Major Talmadge, thank you so much for that instruction. And it was so kind of you to catch that musket before I dropped it flat on the ground, being unprepared for how heavy it was. And I am indebted to you, sir, for helping me not to make a fool of myself in front of so many people. So thank you, Major Talmadge. Somebody, Mr. Cipolla, who took a tour with me with some people who enjoyed it. Thank you so much. And some of you I know have watched my tours and have come to see me in person and take my tours here in New York City. Thank you all so much for that as well. And I'm going to get this annoying thing off of here and go to a regular background. Here we go. Okay, so let me apologize to all of you for appearing in my bedgown and my bed jacket, because it has been an extremely trying day here in Hanover Square. Of course, everything started out as a normal day. Mr. Q and I rose, we had a bit to eat, and we went off to attend to our various responsibilities for the day, me running the shop. Well, around midday, I found that I had an errand to run and I needed to leave the shop, and I left it in the care of Mr. Q and a couple of his gentleman friends, thinking that all would be well. And I left, and upon returning to Hanover Square, I found that quite a crowd had gathered in front of the shop. And there was a great deal of yelling coming from inside as some gentleman who I will not name in this town entered the shop and accused Mr. Q and his friends of being traitors to England and the crown and the nation. And he also suggested to Mr. Q that the fact that Mr. Q's family and my family both come from countries that are not a part of the British Empire, that are traitors by birth. And of course, Mr. Q became outraged, as did his friends. And by the time I got to the shop, Mr. Q had drawn his pistol. There was quite a commotion going on in the shop. And I tell you, this is the sad state of affairs our town has descended into over these past 8 years since the odious Stamp Act of 1765. And we have continued to be divided and to be arguing over these topics all these 8 years. Now, I think that what started today's, shall I say, encounter is a specific paper recently printed in this town that has been circulated and has become very popular and infamous at the same time. And it is entitled "To the Worthy Inhabitants of the City of New York." The author is a gentleman who calls himself Poplicola, which is an old Roman name. He's naming himself for Publius Valerius Poplicola. Now, those of you who have studied ancient Rome know that this gentleman is one of the founders of the Roman Republic, that he is one of the gentlemen that overthrew the monarchy to establish the Republic in about the year 500 before the birth of Christ. The Republic, which then lasted almost 500 years, or maybe a little longer than 500 years. So a worthy gentleman indeed, the original Publius Valerius Poplicola. So we know that the author of this paper, by using this name, wants us to relate him to the gentleman who founded the Roman Republic and served a number of times as consul, or the leader of the Republic. Right? So this is who he wants us to think he is. And it's a very clever use of a pen name. And often the gentlemen in this town use these pen names in order to disguise their true intent. So we're going to walk you through this and tell you the incidents that have been occurring so that you'll learn how to spot one of these intriguers in your own midst. And which reminds me of a note I received this afternoon. Now, all of you received my invitation to join me here this evening, where I said I would be speaking about how to spot a loyalist collaborator. And someone sent me a note back in a laughing, jesting manner, asking me, "Loyalist collaborator? Well, what other kind could there be?" And I can only respond in saying it's not always wise to try to out-clever me, Mrs. Q, and that we know that the people on the other side would refer to rebel collaborators. So I am not here tonight to speak about rebel collaborators, but about loyalist collaborators, those among our midst who pretend to be one thing but are helping the loyalist cause. So I just wanted to address that note. And of course, I would never reveal that person's name because it would just not be a virtuous thing for me to do. So back to my story here. This is likely, now, this paper, "To the Worthy Inhabitants," is likely a response to a series of papers who have recently appeared that go by the name The Alarm. And now I will not reveal what I believe to be the identities of these authors, as I am not entirely sure, but I will let you decide for yourself which is on the side of freedom and which is on the side of corruption and tyranny, as I believe you are all smart enough to do so for yourselves. So The Alarm has been coming out for some weeks now. There have been 3 of them. They are anonymous, of course, and they have been educating the people in our town on the history of the East India Company. I don't know how much you know about them. The East India Company is a very old trading company started during the time of Elizabeth I and has always had very close ties to the royal family, the crown, and the aristocracy of England. So they have been around for quite a long time. It is also heavily connected to the banks and the financiers of London. It is a monopoly in trade with Asia, a monopoly. So any goods we in the colonies or anywhere in the British Empire need from China or India must come through the British East India Company. So now the author of the alarm, numbers 1, 2, and 3, has informed us of the company's disgusting, inhumane treatment of the people of India, including torture, starvation, and other barbaric treatments that go on regularly in this place, India, from which they export, silks, spices, and other items. Now, the author also reminds us of the economic distress currently being suffered in England as a result of the East India Company's financial schemes in China and India. Something I believe you in the future refer to as a Ponzi scheme. Now, we don't have that term in my time, although Mr. Q, being a time traveler, has explained to me the meaning of it. So I believe you could use the term in your time, Ponzi scheme. And indeed, the average people of England are always in a state of economic distress, are they not? Is that not why so many of them have left England to come here to our shores looking for a better life, a difficult life, but still a better life than that led by many people considered peasants in England? But now that this economic distress has extended to the bankers, the real estate investors, the aristocrats, the landowners, and the merchants, why, the alarm has sounded that something must be done. If it was only the peasants, of course, that were going to be affected by this, no one would care. But now that the people with money are affected, they are looking for a solution to their problem and the imminent collapse of the financial system built upon the East India Company. Now, all of those groups I mentioned all own stock in the East India Company. They also have in their investment portfolios investment instruments based upon that company's stock, which I believe in your time you refer to as derivative investments. See, there's nothing new under the sun, is there? So these are derivative investments based on that stock. So if that stock fails, all of those related derivative investments will fail as well. And while the Bank of England finds itself the holder of all of the East India Company's debt. So we can see now how these various entities are connected. The Parliament, many members of which have had their campaigns paid for by the East India Company and have had their very nice lifestyles financed by the East India Company, who may have even taken some bribes from the East India Company. So we have the members of Parliament. Mr. Q is making some strange noises over there. I hope he's all right. They all know that if the East India Company were to go down, they will all sink with it. And the author of the alarm tells us exactly what they have done to save themselves, require us to rescue the East India Company by forcing us to buy their old, rotten, stinking tea. And that is the Tea Act, my friends, who I'm sure you all know about. Which brings us to the paper at hand, written by Poplicola. And may I read directly to you from it, as I do not want to misquote him. As you will see, he is a skilled writer. So this gentleman says to us, every good citizen will be inclined from duty as well as interest to love his country and to be zealous in advancing its welfare. Excuse me a moment. 'Tis to the exertion of the common wisdom and power in the pursuit of a common good that he owes the security of his life, liberty, and property. And he will, of course, feel himself under obligation of contributing his share to the promotion of public happiness. The man who makes the general interest of the society of which he is a member the prevailing object of his actions justly merits the honorable title of a patriot. This is the only ground on which a claim to so distinguished a character can be found. And one might read this opening paragraph and say, yes, of course, this is all true. Why, this gentleman has it right. We are good patriots. We do believe in acting for the common good. And of course, none of us would want to do anything to destroy the prosperity and the wealth and security of our town. So it's a very good start. But this gentleman goes on to deftly conflate patriotism with buying the East India tea. And this is why, my friends, we must read these very carefully. Sometimes read them more than one time and consider them and think about the content. As he explains, if the East India Company falls, the government will fall. The British Empire will fall. He says, and we will all lose our freedom, security, and all the good things we have here. I ask my good friends, is it from the government and the East India Company that we have what we have here? Or is it the result of our own hard work and determination to create good lives here for ourselves and our future generations? Perhaps Poplicola can just demonstrate to me how I will lose all of this if the corrupt government of England falls. I believe you in the future have a term for this. Another term I believe you'll recognize: too big to fail. As I said, there's nothing new under the sun. Poplicola tells us the East India Company is too big to fail. And so we must rescue it for our own good and our own survival. Now, he says that we who oppose the Tea Act are a small cabal, a group of greedy merchants, he calls us, who have our stores filled with Dutch tea, and that it is in our private interest and not our freedom that we seek. And in the most insulting manner, he refers to himself as a friend of liberty. Now, I will say one thing, that I do have tea here in my canister, which I am drinking cold here. And my tea is from the Dutch India Company, as the tea from the Dutch company comes from the same place as the tea from the India Company, China. And the tea tin, of course, is a gift from my good friend, Mrs. R. from Japan. So I do have tea. I do not carry tea in my shop. If I did, I would not carry the English tea. So a gentleman calling himself a student of the law, I'm sure I have no idea who that might be, responds, and I'll read you his response in part. He says, the man who employs his talents to direct his countrymen in the path of truth or guard against impending evils is a blessing to his country. But he who prostitutes his pen to deceive his neighbors into the dark mazes of error, or to lull their virtuous apprehensions asleep on a matter of the utmost importance to their safety and felicity, is a curse to the community and a disgrace to human nature. And I think I agree. The student of the law goes on. He says, Poplicola has further informed us that the English tea, as he is pleased to call it, is much better than the Dutch tea, though he has not been so kind as to tell us why it is better, since they are both shipped from Canton, China. If it may chance that the tea, oh, this is my favorite part. I can't flub this up. This is my favorite part of the student of the law, my most favorite thing in the whole paper. He says, it may chance that the tea, like Madeira wine, grows better by sweating several years in the warehouse. Is that wonderful? Our gentlemen in New York are so witty, aren't they? Just make this such a wonderful city to live in. I'm going to just check your comments here. Oh, a DAR, wonderful. I'm just reading through here a bit. All right, so Poplicola takes us all for idiots, doesn't he? If we accept this abuse, buying the tea, in order to rescue a corrupt, financially and morally corrupt company, there will be no end to the future abuses heaped upon us. And the student of the law lays some of these out in his paper. And I may also tell you that the student of the law is not the only gentleman who has responded to Poplicola. There are many other responses. I've simply chosen his for you tonight, as it is one of my own favorite responses. But if you are interested in seeing more, you may ask me, and I will be happy to send them to you. Because who knows, some of this may be relevant in your time as well. How can we tell? So imagine, my dear friends, a government that tells us which tea we are allowed to consume and from who we are allowed to buy it. Why, next they'll tell us which vegetables we may grow and eat. Perhaps they'll tell us we can no longer eat cucumbers. Tomatoes may be bad for us. Who knows what might be next? Well, and then before you know it, they'll tell us which medicines which medicines we may be allowed to use to treat our illnesses. Why, we'll need government approval to treat a cold or the gout or any other illness that we're used to treating with various herbs and things that our native friends have taught us. So imagine if we accept this one abuse on the part of the government, there's no telling how many abuses they will pile upon us until they control not only what we buy, where we live, and where we go, but what we are allowed to put in our own bodies. An outrage, I tell you, never to be allowed. It seems, though, that things are happening here in New York for the best and that we are uniting. And I must ask you also, I, of course, am not a lady of letters. I have not had the privilege of attending King's College or Yale or the College of New Jersey, which you call Princeton. As a lady, of course, I am not allowed to attend those places. So my education is only what I have been able to attain, of course, through my generous father and our own library and my neighbors and the gentlemen in the town who have been so kind as to tutor me in my knowledge. I have not attended any of those schools, but it seems to me that even through my limited knowledge of past governments, that I have never seen a government that has acted in the interest of the public safety or the public good, but that has acted really only in its own interest of maintaining power and acquiring more of it. And if any of you do know of a government that has existed from my time to your time, or maybe one that I missed in the past, that did exist for the purpose of protecting the people and acting in the public interest and safety and health, please tell me in the comments, and I will, of course, correct the errors of my knowledge. So I am open to those suggestions of another government, of a government that has actually existed for those purposes. So as I said, things are getting better here in New York City as we are beginning to unite now against the Tea Act and are putting aside our old differences in order to unite for a larger cause, which is the cause of liberty. Because without liberty, we will not be allowed any differences to argue over. And what would New York be without us arguing over our differences night and day? So that is a part of our liberty, is the right to have our differences and argue vociferously about them. Now, I saw today a note that our Committee of Correspondence has sent to Boston upon hearing of the sad inability of the committee in Boston to convince their merchants to unite unanimously in support of non-importation of the tea. And I'm very sad to hear this about our brethren and sisters in Boston. And in the letter, our Committee of Correspondence writes, "We are disappointed to hear of the backwardness and avarice of your merchants. Happy for us that this is not the case in New York. We have indeed had divisions and disputes, but these have not arisen from a supposition that our liberties were not worth contending for, or that you should be left to fall victims to the merciless hand of arbitrary power. Our divisions have subsided, and we are cemented in one firm body and expect that the province of New York will be second to none in this noble, generous, and manly struggle for American liberty." And may I add, ladies' struggle as well, because I, just as in 1765 with my father, who owned the shop then, entered into the non-importation agreement, the first non-importation agreement, I have also signed my name to the current non-importation agreement. So let us not forget that it's not just the men struggling for this liberty, but the ladies are struggling for it as well. Although I forgive the authors of the Committee of Correspondence, as in their enthusiasm, they often forget us ladies. Although when they come home, they certainly remember we are here, don't they? So as we did 8 years ago in 1765, we have come together once again, the merchants of New York. We will accept no tea in any of our wharves, transport it on any of our ships, or bring it into any of our shops. None of the East India tea. And as we learned those years, since our solidarity defeated the Stamp Act, recall that it was that solidarity from New England to Georgia and the refusal of the colonies to trade with England that ended the Stamp Act quickly. It's times like these that show you who are your true friends and reveal to you who those are who talk a lot about how hard they'll fight, but instead are weak-willed and give in to the enemy under the gentlest of pressure. I think many of you may know what I'm talking about. So it has been an interesting 8 years as Mr. Q and I have been able to winnow down in our close, intimate circle those who are willing to stand and fight, and those who just spoke a lot about it, but who weren't really interested in doing much. I know it's difficult, but as Mr. Q says, those people who are weak and will not stand with you must be eliminated from your personal life, removed from your inner social circle, because when the time comes that we must fight, and the time will come for us here in America, we do not want those who are weak-willed next to us. Why? Those are the ones who will fold at the first glance of a grenadier. Instead, we want those who will shoot and fight and defend what we have built in this land with our hard work, our generations of sweat, and our love and devotion. We have built all of that in freedom, and we will fight for that freedom. So be sure to eliminate those who are weak and who will easily go over to the other side from your very close inner circle, as the time is coming quickly here in the American colonies that we will be forced to pick up our arms against the enemy. And you want only the strongest fighting with you. So that is my message for tonight. I hope you have all enjoyed it. I am hoping maybe in the future that although I cannot get Mr. Q on camera, that I may be able to get him to speak a few words now and then. And I also wanted to tell you that I will be with you next Friday. Next Saturday, I am going to a lovely event far out on the South Shore of Long Island in a town called Centre Mauritius, where I will be attending a dinner at an inn, at a historic inn. And all of us will be dressed in 18th century attire. The meal will be cooked in a historic hearth. The food will all be accurate to the time period. And I will be publishing pictures and video of that event after it occurs. If you have seen my video of Culper Spy Day, the same fine woman, my friend Diane, will be cooking that meal. So you can check out that video and look for videos of our dinner, which will be occurring next Saturday night. And I'm very happy to be doing that. And the following Sunday, I will be meeting my friend, Mr. Hamilton, where we will be walking through our evacuation day tour route, working out the narration of the story that we will be bringing you on that tour. I'm going to check out your comments really quickly. If you have any comments or questions, please send them along my way. I see my YouTube audience is growing a little bit. Thank you to those who have been joining on YouTube. And of course, our regular Zoom audience and those on Facebook. It's so good to see all of you out there. I don't see any questions. I think you probably all are understanding what I'm speaking about tonight. As you know, humans don't change, and I don't think governments change either. And I think our struggles with government to find the balance between a government that serves the people without oppressing the people is an eternal one, and that we must all be vigilant in that struggle to be sure that our government stays honest and always works in the interest of the people it serves. Remember, government serves us. We do not serve it. So thank you guys all very much, everyone, for joining me tonight. And I will be back next Friday here from Hanover Square. I look forward to seeing everyone then. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.